And last night something happened that made me think about why it's so weird for me. Motherfucker, we were signifying, and motherfucker said, well, what about that burnt neck? And I never thought about, because nobody had ever said nothing. Because I thought I was the only one that noticed I was burnt up. Because the motherfucker just looked like, say, that's a strange tattoo. But this motherfucker said, it burnt up, motherfucker. And hair growing on it. Was you burnt? I mean, you know, real signifying. I don't know, like, there's so many, like, white people here. White people never came to see me till I burned up.
I'm a bit of a sport, I am one day, oh dear, oh Lord. I went to Amsterdam and I enjoyed myself, I'm sure. I had a go at the coconuts and knocked the beauty down. I was brimming all over with joy upon my journey back to town. I was holding me coconut when a lady winked at me.
Hey everybody, welcome to Comedy on Vinyl episode 8. This is going to be the worst sounding recording so far because we have the air conditioning running because it's about 120 degrees outside. This week we're doing comedy, we're doing comedy. We're doing Richard Pryor live on the Sunset Strip. With me is Jeremy Guskin.
Hi.
And Mike Preister.
Hello everybody.
So Mike, you'll obviously remember from our thus far most popular episode, which was the last Richard Pryor album, Is It Something I Said? And yeah, you guys go ahead and talk. I'm going to sit back and drink some water. Yeah. When did you guys first hear this one? Why is it important to you?
I definitely saw it when it was released as a movie. Went out to see it. And Pryor was at the top of his game at that time. He had the cocaine incident, which he refers to through the recording.
Plenty.
And it was still a point where you would go out and see a comedy movie, a performance movie when they came out, I think we talked about it before. I don't know, besides like somebody putting one out on Comedy Central or any of the, maybe HBO, but like to put it out into theaters, at the local movie Cineplex doesn't seem to happen anymore, and it's probably proliferation.
I think Seinfeld was the last one to do it a couple of years ago, right?
That's true.
Didn't he?
Was his a live show?
Comedian, but I know had definitely parts of his live show. I didn't get to see the whole. I didn't get to see the whole thing actually.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was more strict documentary, but he did have a whole lot of his stuff.
Right. So again, it's not like an Eddie Murphy Raw even that had some cutaway parts.
That would almost be smart. If Eddie Murphy does come back to stand up, he should do it like that. I think, personally.
Rather than doing like an HBO.
Yeah, because I think he could still draw people. Except for I guess they're still used to seeing him doing little kid movies, so maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, the question is, would he do, would he go back to being Eddie Murphy Raw? Can he go back?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he could.
I think he could, man, because it was one of the things that I loved about Sunset Strip is that it starts off so awkwardly with him asking for matches from the audience, which he's gonna refer to 40 minutes down the line, right?
Yeah.
And he gets into the whole masturbating, and it's not, it's really assaultive and sort of uncomfortable right off the bat, and it's great because then he comes back around, and then he's mentioning even at the end, being burned and doing the match, running down the street, he does all of the bits, and I would love to see Eddie Murphy in comedian or delirious style talking about, all right, now I'm going to talk about that girl that I picked up. All right, because he could if he came right at it.
Sure.
He could do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That would be the way for him to go, because we so many people now know him the present day as Daddy Daycare or any of those,
because that's what he is.
Clumps, and I don't know if
Hercules.
But is that 2 or 3 years ago now that I'm thinking about it? Can he still do? I don't know if that's still where he has to go anyway, and who knows what's going on in his life, whether his handlers would even sometimes they get stuck with handlers who won't let you refer to those things. They say don't we don't want that to ever come up. If there's interviews, they probably warn journalists.
But I mean, like and just to say, I mean, again, this is sort of my hope because probably the reality is that it would be rather difficult. But like for him to go out and do even a movie like, what was the one with Steve Martin?
Bullfinkel.
I can't believe and you
not Bullworth.
No, it's not Bullworth. That's the
Bowfinger.
Bowfinger. Thank you. But like they take some stabs at Hollywood and Scientology and a whole bunch of other things.
Right.
So I mean, I think he's still got that sort of modern.
Well, he's always going to be Eddie Murphy. Who was the Eddie Murphy who came out? On Saturday Night Live. And,
sure.
Did Gumby and.
But he wasn't Richard Pryor, was he?
Right. No. I mean, the thing is, like, just because the rumors are all that they're going to make, if they do Beverly Hills Cop 4, they're going to make it PG-13, which is like, what the fuck is the point? If you're going to do it, you should make him a badass again and kind of reinvent him.
Well, I mean, everything after 2. I mean, talk about that, it's ridiculous.
Is Raw on vinyl?
It's a good question. I would imagine
thing to find out, because that'd be fun to kind of go over, because there were catchphrases from that album that I think we still do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know all of Delirious and Comedian like the back of my hand still. I mean,
all right, we're not doing this album anymore.
No, sorry. But anyway,
Raw.
no, but this is, I mean, I love this one because, Pryor was... the stuff he did before this, and and again, like, this was my first exposure to him, and, my parents were being very, very open-minded at this point by letting me even watch this stuff. But, they watched it with me and explained to me, and like, you know what, I mean, it's funny, but he doesn't need to use the F so much.
Right.
Like, things like that.
Right.
Like, and he had immaculate timing, and I think, the stuff before this, when he was doing those character things, I mean, it was almost like performance art.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love Richard Pryor because he was always just a little bit farther ahead of the curve as what was going to be permissible as far as stand-up comedy was concerned.
Right.
And I think this album is a perfect example.
We talked about, when we were doing, was it something I said that, he pushed those envelopes so much and, went beyond. He was Lenny Bruce funny. I mean...
Isn't that horrible to say? Because, you want to say Lenny Bruce was funny, but you listen to it and you go, I don't know.
I'm guessing there are guys who are older than us who will, avow to Lenny Bruce's comedy instincts too, because we just know him as the guy who, read court transcripts and things like that. Right. And, unfortunately, we get that later image of him because, then we get somebody, who in my life, started when I was in high school, my exposure and this was just the most hilarious man I'd ever heard, and just never heard anything like him, and it was all, the watered down Tonight Show comedians, which he was one of, but once you got to see them, raw, if you want to call it that, and in their element, just amazing.
Now here's how I really burn up. Now everybody know, my friends really know how it happened, okay? Usually before I go to bed, I have a little milk and cookies. No, I do. And one night I had that low-fat milk and that pasteurized shit, and I dipped my cookie in, and the shit blew up. And it scared the shit out of me. Not the blowing up, but it caught on fire. And you know what? It is weird to catch on fire. I don't know if anybody else in here, you ever been just burned up? It is weird because you go, hey, I'm not in the fireplace. I am fucking burning up.
What was your, Jeremy, we've talked about several times about being two white guys from rural areas being exposed to like our first black comedy. Like for you though, you're from New York City.
Yeah, well, and I mean, again, like I was incredibly blessed in the sense that, like my dad was an actor as I was growing up, and my mother was, worked for Merv Griffin Enterprises, so I mean, like we had a lot of exposure to it, even though it wasn't like direct, and we weren't seeing the top to top, but like my parents were and are very progressive people, which is awesome. So I mean, like again, again, you know, like I don't know a lot of 10, 9, 8-year-olds who are able to watch things like this and get, you know, have their dad give them a George Carlin album and say, you know, like this is really funny, you know, and knowing he's telling the truth, you know, after watching it.
That's an interesting perspective too. I mean, your parents were artists, and, you
But,
know,
well,
and so
yeah.
they appreciated, I'm sure, you know, where they were coming from and that it was funny and all. You know, my parents were both farmers as kids, so you know, a little harder to get them to take that corner.
You know, exactly. You know, like I was explaining on the last one I got to do, is that my dad was the one who introduced me to the Firesign Theater, and you know, like most parents aren't going to give that to somebody who's not even 13 yet. You know what I mean? Or like would even know to give that to them.
Sure.
So, but it was the same. Again,
great.
you know, like the same thing with this. You know, sitting down and watching it, and again, as a kid, I didn't get a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, some of it was just, I didn't know what the Sunset Strip was.
Sure.
I mean, to me, it sounded literally like Vegas.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it was part of Hollywood. There was this whole, you know, I didn't get that. So, I mean, like, things like that were more foreign to me than what he was actually talking about. You know, like when he was, you know, I love it when he talks about working with Gene Wilder, and you know, and like and doing what was it, Every Which Way But Loose or whatever it is when they're in the jail.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just, you know, and he, you know, doing his bad impression of Gene, you know, doing his impression of himself, and it's you know, like that was great because I knew those movies, you know, before. Like, and again, I think it's really interesting to talk about Richard Pryor, like, or again when you're talking about Eddie Murphy, even, or we're talking about Steve Martin, or any of these people that we mentioned. It's really interesting that most people now think of them as they're movie stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, Steve Martin isn't a stand-up comedian.
Right.
You know, that would be the third or fourth thing people would think of.
He's a banjo player.
Right. Yeah. You know, and he does. You know, and I mean, like to go from rambling to, you know, like the you know the album he just, you know, released. You know, it's not that big a jump. It's great. You know.
Did Pryor do any movies with Steve Martin? I think of any specifically.
It's a good question.
If it was something that was big cast,
right,
around stuff. Never.
Not that I can remember at all.
It seems like for some reason that would have been a good pairing
It
too.
probably would have been a good
pairing.
pairing. But he ended up, you know, him and Gene Wilder made enough money together. I guess he didn't need to move around.
Yeah, he had his partner.
But we talked about that last time too. He kind of got screwed out of. Well, he screwed himself out of a movie career. It felt like. I mean, maybe our perspective is also different on that too. What do you think? I mean, the reason
Richard Pryor?
Yeah, I mean, he had a career, but he was never a star.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think that's anything that he did directly himself. I think that's just unfortunately the way Hollywood works sometimes.
Right.
And it's like, oh look, we've got this guy who does this thing really well. Let's have him do it for a while, and then when he tries to switch oars, we're going to fight him on it or not give him the support that he did when we did the first thing. Right. So when he tries to reinvent himself as a family-friendly star in Moving or whatever, you know, one of those last things that he did was, you know, it's going to come across as he looks a little old and a little tired and it's a little awkward. And to be honest with you, that's what it kind of was. You know, it's not Silver Streak.
Of course.
You know?
Was it Bustin' Loose? What was the prison one with?
Stir Crazy.
Yeah,
Stir
Crazy, right?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Isn't that the one with their chickens on the, on the poster?
Yes.
Chicken suits without the head.
Yes,
Directed by Sidney
I think it was
Poitier.
a one-minute bit in the movie.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite bit from this album?
To be honest with you, I mean, my favorite things in it are when the audience reacts to him telling the stories about him burning and blowing up. I mean, it's like his material is great. I mean, all the way through, it's great. I love his bits about Africa. You know, I mean, like, just the, like, I didn't find one goddamn Pryor in no African phone book. You know, I mean, like, that is just funny shit. And I mean, not even that. You can go through this album and literally just drop the needle anywhere you want, and any phrase out of his mouth is like a catchphrase.
Yeah.
It's like when he's talking about being, you know, just like being gay. You know, it's like an asshole looks like an asshole. You know, I mean, it's just like, it's just like you could put that on a T-shirt now and walk around with it and be like, all right, that's awesome, man. Where'd you get that?
For me, and I remember being at the theater and seeing the audience doubling over throughout most of the show, and it's when he's talking about, you know, the accident.
Yeah.
And remember just myself being shocked. I go, wow.
And
you know, I mean, you wanted him to do it ahead of time, but you think, oh, there's no way he's, you know, it's not going to happen. So just that amazement of going, holy crap, he's going there. And he had, you know, a hilarious take on it. And to think that he turned that into comedy gold too. You go, wow, you know how many people can do that?
And that's just it. I mean, like, and again, people think. I think nowadays there's like a popular conception about. It's like, oh, you have a miserable life? That's comedy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not really. Do you understand what I mean? It's like, if that were the case, like every Holocaust survivor, there would be like a Kings of Holocaust tour, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, they're hysterical. Unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. I did just say the Kings of Holocaust comedy tour, didn't I? But he's exactly. But I mean, and I think that's the thing that I love about this album is that he comes right at it.
Yeah.
He comes right at it, and he's probably making the jokes that he made to himself to get him through the damn thing in the first place.
Sure.
And it just so happens that he's enough of a poet and is literate and intelligent enough. And I hate to dig at anybody else, modern-wise, but it's easy for me to do it. But, like, you see somebody like Titus, and it's just he likes to talk about misery, and there's no bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm waiting for the thing, and there's no thing.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, you can hear it too on this, like especially when he's talking about the mafia thing. Like you can hear how he dealt with it when he was a kid. Like, he's working through these old stories. He must still be doing it.
Exactly, and it's not just working through it. It's also really well crafted.
Sure.
He uses great turns of phrase. It's not just. And it's one of the reasons why I think my father allowed me to listen to this.
Yeah.
Is he knew it wasn't just some comedian coming up and swearing every other word. And there are plenty of them then, and there are plenty of them now.
Yep.
It's like my father was never a big Dice fan. Let me put it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Didn't get it. One of those things. And I mean, like, even though I still think some of the stuff he did was great, I get it. It's, a lot of it's just based on the attitude and everything else.
Yeah.
I really do gravitate, I think, more to the material.
Sure.
And it's like somebody else could do some of his bits, and I could get a good laugh out of it. Whereas I don't know anybody else who could do, like, a Dane Cook bit and get the same result.
Yeah, no.
Unless you're parroting.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, unless, literally that.
Penitentiary. To do a film with Gene Wilder, right? We did a film called Stir Crazy. And it was really strange because it's 80% black people in there. And you said, well, why is that strange? Because there are no black people in Arizona. I mean, they bust motherfuckers in. And I was there, and I've always said the black man been fucked over. The revolution, motherfucking whitey, motherfucking fuck over us. We got a good heart, we nice people, just get a bad break. And I was there 6 weeks, and I talked to some of the brothers there. Thank God we got penitentiaries. I said to him, why'd you kill everybody in the house? They was home. I met a motherfucker named J-Bo. He has a sentence, hear this sentence, triple life. How do you do triple life? That means if he die and come back, he gotta go to penitentiary. Right there, he say, fuck kindergarten. Get your little ass on in the penitentiary, motherfucker. You know what you did last time you was here.
I think it's 81 or 82. I didn't even look.
Yeah, 82.
I'm looking at his suit on the back.
Yeah.
It's just, I love it. It's capped. To be honest with you, it's his belt.
It's
It's the belt. It matches the watch, and it's so
82.
Oh, it's so early 80s. It's like a thin leather strap. Even it matches the watch, the thin leather strap with a little bit of gold on it. But it's that red suit, man, with the black shirt and the black bow tie. It's bad, man.
What year was Raw? Would that have been like 85 then?
I want to say like 86.
Yeah. Right. So, in the sense of the world, the same time.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
It seems like it was almost a follow-up, of, okay, we can do these kind of movies too.
Yeah.
That he's again, I can't think of big comedy show movies kind of before these Richard Pryor ones. I don't know if they just weren't good enough for me to kind of keep them in my head or not, or if these just stand out because they were so good.
No, I mean, it's like, because I went back kind of through the archives to kind of find what were the big HBO and sort of, you know, even like, you know, even much later, you know, VH1 or whatever they were showing at the beginning. And, you know, most of their stuff is, you know, they went with Carlin. You know, Carlin, you know, like multiple shows. And, you know, like, and that's what, you know, get a half an hour, an hour.
Yeah.
And they were finding out they were pulling big ratings, you know, because nobody else was doing this type of thing. Yeah. And it's one of the great things about this is, you know, like, it's great seeing and do it, because when you see it and hear it, you get the whole experience. It's like when we're talking about, you know, the Fireside Theater is wonderful to listen to because you can only listen to it. There is no visual to go with it, as opposed to something like when if you're going to listen to a Steve Martin album and you're sitting there for half of it listening to the audience react for a good 5 to 6 minutes, and you're going like, I don't know what he's doing, man, but it's probably great.
And it makes you laugh still.
All you've got to go off are all the different photos on the album.
Right, you know, and then you're looking at something else, and you know, I mean, and again, it's wonderful, but, you know, again, Pryor was perfect to have on an album because you can listen to it and still get 95% of it.
Yeah, because all those turns of phrase and everything are, like, in character, even if, like, they're just, the voice, I love the voices that he does, because they're not typical.
Jason, you said you read the Gene Wilder book, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I haven't done the research to know whether, you know, because I want to know more about how Pryor crafted his, you know, his shows and his work, and who's helping him. You know, I mean, it's almost impossible to be this amazing by yourself. Like, who, you know, who are his,
think so, right? Yeah.
You know, who is he collaborating with, or who does he bounce stuff off of, or, you know, I'd be curious to know all those
demon
things.
Has he summoned to help write for him?
I mean, he specifically mentioned Paul Mooney on the back of the other one, so I don't know if Paul Mooney worked with him regularly or not. But yeah, he said such and such bit stolen from Paul Mooney.
Yeah.
I saw Paul Mooney in the 99 cents only store down on Lancashire about a year and a half ago.
Really?
And I gotta tell you, I nearly shit my pants.
City there?
And it's right down the street from my house.
Yeah.
And I usually don't freak out.
Yeah,
but I have to say, like, I didn't want to like freak out on Paul Mooney because I would have gone up to him and at least gone, you know what, man, I'm a big fan of yours. I think you're great. But like in the 99 cents only store, and like he wasn't doing like hat down glasses. He's chatting up the woman in front of him.
Awesome.
You know, talking to the cashier. I was just in seventh heaven. I was just looking at Paul Mooney shopping at the 99 cents only, and I'm stupid because I didn't even look at what he was buying. I should have been.
That's the one thing you always want.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what are people buying at the 99 cent store?
When I was behind Forrest Whitaker in line, he bought Bacardi rum, and he was buying coconuts, I think. Also coconuts.
Where?
Ralph's.
Oh, at
That's
Ralph's.
the first celebrity I ever saw out here. That's why it sticks in my head.
Forrest Whitaker
Forrest
at Ralph's.
Whitaker, yeah.
See, that's great. It's a great venue.
Absolutely.
Star sightings out here are important, like where you see them.
Then the second guy I saw was Bruno Kirby, so two Good Morning Vietnam guy. I know, right before he died.
Man, Bruno Kirby, I'd like to just take a little side tack. Did you know Bruno Kirby actually is Richard Pryor's brother?
In what way?
They're related.
How is that
Like
possible?
a sister?
No, they're not. But I was watching television the other day, and I saw Bruno Kirby pop up, and I was amazed. I was like, is there any other actor on this planet who could put down on their resume The Godfather Part 2 and This Is Spinal Tap? I mean, that's so not fair.
No, yeah.
And I'm not talking about like just cameos, Come On, Mime Is Money even, which is great.
Yeah.
But, he's got the whole Yes I Can thing, and he's, young Clemenza. It's fantastic.
Brilliant.
He's an amazing guy. I got to audition for him once. He was
Really?
so nice.
That's
Would have
awesome.
given my arm to work with him.
I bet.
Again. So that was another depressing... Again, boys and girls, if you have dreams of coming to Hollywood, all the people you want to work with will
die.
be dead by the time you get here.
Yep, sorry.
This is Jeremy Guskin crushing one more dream. Good night.
Hopefully not just one.
No, well, one more dream in your dream. It's the same dream, but for hopefully multiple people.
Yeah.
They'll make that clear. Sorry. But no, back to Rich.
Who was also dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he did get a Mark Twain Award before he died, did he not?
Yes, he did.
So that's good.
And a Kennedy Center honor, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
I could be wrong, though.
Well, I think they hold the Mark Twain Awards at the Kennedy Center, so that's why I've always...
Yeah, but it's not like a twofer. They don't have a discount.
They don't just do two at once?
It's not the way the government works,
That would
even
be
when it
pretty
comes
good.
to the arts.
That'd be great.
No. You have to come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just
What about you, Jason? Favorite bits from?
Yeah.
Well, since this is literally the first time I listened to the album,
I love the fact that you're hosting this series.
I know, just wait.
Comedy on vinyl. I don't know what a record player is.
The next one, I swear to God, the next one I know
I
by
saw
heart.
the word comedy written on vinyl siding on a house, and
But that's also the perspective that we're going to run into here. People who
Exactly.
Richard Pryor
I
and haven't
am
heard
the
this.
everyman here,
Yeah.
Jeremy. I am the Jack Lemmon of this podcast right now.
God bless you.
See? But not in every case. I know a lot of these albums. I just happen to pick with you guys.
I'm getting on you for no
I know
reason.
you are, but it's fine. It's good. But the Africa thing, and only because, you know why? It stood out to me because we were talking last time. I don't know if we brought it up. I think we did, but the fact that Dave Chappelle went to Africa had his whole moment too. You know, but he hasn't done any famous stand-up about it, and it was making me think, what the fuck would... I want to hear what he has, because he went. Didn't he do an Oprah interview or something afterwards, Dave Chappelle, and then like kind of got serious about it? And I don't care.
But I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't. I should really. I'd love to find out, honestly, because, excuse me, his story with all of that is fantastic. You know, I just love it. You know, like come up with a show that was pretty good. I think.
Yep.
Made a certain channel a lot of money.
Yep.
Negotiated for a lot more money. Got paid. Went crazy. I mean, that's how you do it. So many people flip them and go crazy before you get paid, and then you're wandering around in your own filth. You know, like that's how you go crazy. Like that's how you have to have a heroin, addiction too.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to do it before you get the money, because then it goes down the toilet. You want the leather couch with the toilet in it, and then you get addicted to heroin.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Tupelo, Mississippi, Mudbone. You know, now, I know that boy. See, he fucked up. See, that fire got on his ass. And it fucked him up upstairs. Fried up what little brains he had. Because I remember the motherfucker, he could make a motherfucker laugh at a funeral on Sunday, Christmas Day. But you know what happened? He got some money. That's what happened to him. He got some money. Them Miss Mill cramps and shit was gone. He said, fuck it. Went all the way crazy.
Yeah, I just took a big jump off of that tangent dive.
It's got your Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, but I'd love to find out what his story is, because I love. I mean, even just to jump back to Eddie Murphy when he talks about just traveling as a black man in America, let alone going to Africa and everything else.
Sure.
It's great, because it's always a unique perspective.
And we talked last time about how big an influence he can see in so many comedians now, and in Chappelle and Murphy and any of those guys.
All of them.
And be they white, black, or Asian. It's Pryor, he plowed fields that so many had not gone through before.
I mean, Jeremy, we were also talking about this last time, character work-wise, can you think of any comedians now who are doing good character work on
No,
stage?
I mean, if you're doing
Al?
character work as stand-up, it's some niche, weird little thing, or
Right.
that's just who you are.
Sure.
Like you are Mitch Hedberg, you are Louis Black, you are,
Right.
you have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Even, you are Bobcat Goldthwait,
Yeah.
to now,
Right.
to a certain extent. And, I think all those people have great material that exists on its
Sure.
own, but I mean, he was doing he was doing sketches by himself.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
He
really
was playing all the characters with different voices live on stage alone.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think the reason people don't do that is I don't think that there are many people who can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a story. There's a storytelling gene in there that's different than the storytelling gene that you see coming out now. It's a much more, maybe I'm wrong, but much more selfish. It's just like, here's what happened to me, here's my perspective, but like
Which is-
from my eyes only.
Which is fine,
Sure.
because I think that there are comedians who do that incredibly well.
Yes.
I don't know if you know Jake Johansson,
No.
but I mean,
Hilarious.
he's one of my favorite comedians, and I remember when the first time seeing him, and then I didn't see him for a while, and then I've just seen him again in the last couple of years. he can do an hour-long set and only tell 2 stories.
Sure.
But he's invested in it, and he's giving you. He's doing it as a comedian, but it's almost like he's doing it as a monologue because you get insights into him.
Okay.
And that's what makes it even more funny because you get connected with him as a person.
Right.
So when he's talking about, it's like, when you're getting old is when you injure yourself in your sleep, and when you see him do it, because he doesn't just drop that, which is a funny enough line on its own.
Right.
He builds up to it. You
he's
see where
fantastic.
he's going in it. And again, it's that kind of attention to detail, that type of craftsmanship, just in the words that you choose to use that you don't see.
Anybody who likes Ellen DeGeneres as a comedian,
Loved her stuff. Like her phone call to God. That's about as close as you can get to something that she did on this.
If you see if you see Jake Johansson, you think, wow, he's doing, but he predates Ellen DeGeneres. I first saw Jake Johansson like '85 or something.
Well, she was about, I think, around the same time.
Yeah, she won a Showtime Young Comedian special like in '85 as well, which means she's probably been working for several years as well.
Yeah, all these guys are.
But to see a couple times I've seen people put them side by side on videos. I've ever seen that done and everything. And their speech patterns are incredibly similar.
Funny.
It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, but it's great because they're 2 totally different characters.
Yeah. I wish she was still doing stand-up. I really love her stand-up. I mean, I'm sure she does it, but I just think of her as a show host now. That's the hard part.
Well, no, it's great. I mean, she's doing material every day on that. It's a hard job.
Dancing, giving away. Wish she gave away.
Being popular in a talk show, which is the easiest to produce thing on television.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have one set.
It is. She's beloved.
She's good, and she's good at it. To be honest with you, she's really good at it.
It's not an easy
I would have watched a
gig.
Richard Pryor talk show.
Great.
That
That really would have been
gone
pretty
downhill
amazing,
quick,
right?
but it would have been
he
great to
would have
watch.
bumped heads with studios the entire time. But that would have been a fantastic 6 months.
He would have out Letterman.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
We're gonna drop a baby off the roof. It's all right. It's a Chinese baby. Nobody wants it. I don't know. I shouldn't channel dead comedians. It's a bad idea.
That's fine. You did it. You did it, and it's recorded, and that's what happened. Do you have a favorite character then? Either of you? I mean, Mudbone's on here. Didn't you say like at some point he stopped doing Mudbone?
Well, this
This
he
is
may even said on this one, right? Doesn't he say this is the last
This
time?
is it. I'm not
gonna
doing
do
him again.
Mudbone
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
Mudbone again. When I first heard it, and I think it was on. Is it something I said? I laughed so hard, and it was this thing of a character that I could see, and I knew that was him doing it, but I saw, this old, geezer, who I'm sure, was a real person in Richard Pryor's life.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was so real, but still so funny to me. And, even seeing it again here, I'm guessing this is the first time I ever saw him do it. I'd heard it on albums
that's
and
actually a
stuff,
good point. I didn't even think
so
of
it was
that.
interesting.
How does he play it visually? I mean, obviously we're talking about the album, but how does he play it? I mean, like, does he just take on a whole...
I don't remember him doing much more than
He just, he does the physicality, he doesn't get lost in it. The thing, and I didn't want to interrupt you because I really like what you were saying, and I agree with it. It's so interesting is that when he does Mudbone, it's like when he does almost any of his characters, it's not a sketch character. It's not a caricature. It's this fully fleshed out thing. Yeah. And even though we only get the funny bits and what he thinks is relevant in that moment, he's got a whole world that this person has already existed in his mind. Yeah. He's seen Mudbone doing everything that we don't want to see. Yeah. And that we don't have to see.
Sure.
And he doesn't overdo it. It's just a little bit of a hunch in his shoulders. And I mean, it's not grotesque. It's just a really simple characterization. Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, it's kind of like, probably putting it together is kind of like that scene in Silver Streak when he's teaching Gene Wilder to be black. Yeah, right, and he's like, stop doing the fucking character. Like, what black people do you know look like that? Who moves like that? Move like a human being. And I think that's kind of at the crux of everything that he does that's so good, is that there's real humanity in it. And I mean, and he's selfless in it, which is why I think he's able to make Mudbone a real character, which is why he's able to talk about the freebasing thing and being in the hospital so freely. Yeah. You know, and also about, you know, some of his little foibles and stuff. And, like, I mean, he's almost, like, blunt and honest about the fact that he cheats on his wife.
Yeah.
It, you know, I mean, like, that's horrible.
I know.
Horrible.
But the honesty makes it so you want to keep listening.
But, I mean, but it's just because, it's just that, you know, at least he's being honest about it. And I don't have to agree with everything he says.
Sure.
But, man, I do love some of his insight. And I do love his turn of phrase. And I do love the way he sees the world.
I went to Africa. I went to the motherland, find my roots. Right? 700 million black people. Not one of them motherfuckers knew me. I looked in every phone book in Africa. I didn't find one goddamn Pryor. Only one familiar name I saw was J-Bo Walker. I called him up. They said he was in Arizona.
I get a feeling, again, you're talking about attention to detail, and that's a big thing with any good comedian. I feel like every good comedian or comedy writer or comedy actor, what have you, has some form of OCD because, like, that's just that attention to detail and that need to remember these things. Whether that's, you know, I mean, at least for me, that's how it's always worked. I know I've got OCD, and that's the only reason I've ever been able to draw from that to do anything. It's the only reason I can remember how to do an impression when I do an impression, you know. It sticks in my head. There's an algorithm to it, you know, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, and again, you know, it's exactly what you said. And how many modern comedians, or I mean, even just a couple of years after, or that year, are stealing directly from this model to do their own stuff. I mean, it takes somebody like Richard Pryor to come along and do that. Yeah. And when you see something like this, I mean, if you're a comedy fan or want to perform or anything else, you have to have that backlog of, oh, this works, this is funny. Because, I mean, there's one thing I love talking about, it's like the nature of comedy, which changes so much. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's amazing what you can get away with in this album, as opposed to what you get away with 10 years earlier. Right. 10 years earlier than that, 10 years earlier than that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's popular comedy in film or stand-up or whatever it is, or just, you know, like even permissible jokes.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being a kid, they were all Polish jokes. Now they're all blonde jokes.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing, but that's the change. You know, it's amazing. So, I mean, if you want to do this, you have to backlog the stuff that works.
Sure.
Because otherwise, how are you going to come up with what you're going to do? You know, it's like, well, that kind of worked, and I know that I can push it this far, so let me try this thing and jump off from here. Okay, that didn't work. That was the opposite of working. Now I'm going to try it like this.
Right.
I'll try with a funny voice. All right, now we're going to get rid of that, you know?
Yeah.
And these guys, too, you know, who lived on the road, you know, you just can't, you know, they had this permanent workshop that they were, you know, I'm sure he was working 5 nights a week. And, you know, chance to, all he would have to do is break out 2 or 3 minutes, you know, a week or whatever, and then you build up over the course of 10 weeks, you know, all of a sudden you've got, you know, 60 minutes of material, hopefully new material that, you know, hope something would turn around. But also they're polishing these things that they know are gems as well. You know,
and we have to mention that because, you know, I think it was, you know, an interview with Sarah Silverman that first even hit me this idea. Because, you know, I have friends who do stand-up, and it's one of the things I admire so much, and I know how difficult it is, which is one of the reasons that I don't try it.
You've never tried it?
Oh, no, sure. Alone in my room with my stuffed animals.
Of course, right.
I am awesome. You know, midnight at the Guskin room. That shit. I'm serious, man. It's pull string room only. But I mean, like it's just so difficult, and she's amazing because she's the one who told me, you know, because they all love the same people, you know, like they love Richard Pryor and Carlin and Red Fox and, you know, Don Rickles, like they love these people because that's how they learned it.
Yeah.
And it was an interview with Sarah Silverman that said it sucks because you can't craft a bit anymore.
Yeah.
Because you go do it at a club and there's some jackass there with a cell phone camera who videotapes your whole thing and then puts it on the web. Yeah. And you don't have time to craft, oh, you know what, I really should change that to nauseous instead of throw up. It moves better, you know, or whatever it is. Right. You know, just those little subtle things. You know, Carlin and, again, all these guys used to, you know, go to small clubs and small rooms and craft these things before they did their big shows. And that's why they're so polished and so good.
Sure. Were you the one, Tony? Was it Chris Rock who was trying bits?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
Index cards or something?
I've known at least 2 people who have had shows they went to see get interrupted by Chris Rock.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they all like to just hop in and try out
That's
new
you know,
shit,
what you
which
got to
blows
do.
me
I know
away.
Leno does work like Sunday nights at the Hermosa Beach Comedy Magic Club.
Really?
And you know, to think besides the fact I believe he goes out on weekends sometimes. You know, besides his 5 nights a week, which I can give him that. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, where he's gone, he decided he'd been on the road so long, he wanted to. You know, I'm sure it's like I gotta go mainstream, and I'm gonna make it. You know, make
Yeah.
a buck. Although he claims he doesn't spend a dime of his NBC money either, is another thing. He says,
Well, he
so.
apparently gives all that away, but he makes. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have a classic car collection that has its
Yeah.
own zip code, you're making a fair amount of money. All right, you know, it's like, you know, when you talk to athletes, you know, like ex-athletes are saying, you know, these guys today are getting paid ridiculous amounts. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, writes for the Yankees, beat writer for the Daily News for the Yankees. He was telling me this story about, I forget, of course, the player was talking to him about modern players' salaries. And he's only been out of the game about 10, 20 years. 10, 15 years, and he goes, you know, when I signed that contract, it was for $1 million, and this is back when $1 million was a lot of money. And my friend looks at him and he goes, I hate to break this to you, but $1 million is still a lot of money. All right? Okay. All right, you were saying? Thank you.
Perspective, sir.
Right, so, yeah, it's interesting, you know, because, and I have to give Leno credit, because he's still willing to get up in front of an audience and do the thing that got him to where he is.
You know,
Is he good? That's
Who
my
knows?
question.
I mean,
He's not funny on
again, if he's
TV.
going out every week, I'm sure he's not good every night.
He's not funny on TV. That's my
But,
problem.
you know, like,
Right.
who knows? Maybe he's doing a more adult set when
I've
he
liked
goes
him
out
on
at
stage
night,
before,
you know?
until the whole Conan thing happened. I liked him on stage and said I don't like him on TV. He was okay on stage. Now I just, you know, I like set him on fire. But that's a whole other
Oh,
thing.
please. Come
That's
on.
not true. I don't want to set the man on fire. If you're listening to this, Jay Leno, which you're not, I don't really want to set you on fire. Just, you know.
Isn't there more than
It's just-
enough room for all of the lousy talk shows on television and cable?
I suppose.
Except for George
I suppose.
Lopez.
Except for George.
He's got to go. Thank
You know,
God.
so, I mean, 'cause, you know,
I dodged a bullet with that one.
Yeah.
I'm glad I said it today and not last week.
Right.
No, it was terrible.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if Pryor was ever in that crew that got to do, you know, like the weekly hosting
The
of
guest
Tonight
host?
Show. You
I
know?
bet you he
I
did.
would have to imagine he was.
I
at
have
some
to
point,
imagine
don't you
he
think?
did too,
That
yeah.
somehow he got worked into that.
Yeah,
and,
I would think so, yeah.
Can you guys ever remember seeing him on TV and then compare it to?
I mean, I can remember seeing him on the Tonight Show 1,000 times, but I mean, do I ever see him behind the? Can I remember him behind the desk? I mean, I can Photoshop a picture in my head of him behind the desk,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's real.
I wonder if that was just too dangerous for NBC to think of, you know, trying to do.
Because I mean, they used to hand off the baton quite a bit, but it was
Yeah.
always to somebody they knew was going to be
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
you know, I
that
think,
had to be-
I mean, they got risky when they were giving it to Joan Rivers, weren't
Yeah.
they?
Uh-huh.
You know.
I think there was a level of, and I know it was parodied somewhat by the Larry Sanders Show, of
So
he
good.
didn't want somebody who was too good back there, you
Yep.
know, filling in.
Sure,
you
well, I
know,
mean,
the-
I got somebody who's pulling
Yeah.
better ratings
Yeah.
than you never
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah, right. You know?
Right, that
Yeah,
vacation
there'd
becomes
be-
permanent.
There'd be no loyalty whatsoever.
Oh, are you
if
kidding
that
me?
happened,
What do you mean?
know?
There never was.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, look at it, and you talk about the Conan thing with Leno, and then what about the Letterman thing with Leno?
Right.
You know, the
Yeah.
same thing. Well, almost.
Almost the
But,
same thing.
yeah, but no, that would have been great. You know, Richard Pryor and Natasha. I mean, it's. I mean, he should have been on TV more.
And I saw people all colors and shapes. And the voice said, "Do you see any niggas?" I said, "No." I said, "You know why? Because there aren't any." Because I'd been there 3 weeks. I hadn't said it. And it started making me cry, man. I said, holy shit. All the acts I've been doing, and as an artist, a comedian, and speaking and trying to say something, and I've been saying that, and that's a devastating fucking word. That has nothing to do with us. Like, we are from a place where they first started people. In Africa, right? I mean, in Kenya, Dr. Leakey, a white anthropologist. I have to say that so the white people believe me. Oh, that could be true. White, that's good. I mean, he found remains of man 5 million years ago that stood up and walked on earth. You know that motherfucker didn't speak French. I mean, black people, we are the first motherfuckers on the planet. What else I found out is the fact that aside from us being from the original people, so are the white people that we so-called that. Because we all family. That's it, Jack. And fuck all that other shit. Because it don't mean nothing except about some cash. Because the black man was the first motherfucker to stand on the earth and say, where in the fuck am I? And how do you get to Detroit?
He did a pretty funny turn on Saturday Night Live, Richard Pryor did. They did a funny bit, the spear chucker.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah. What is it, the psychiatrist? Say the first thing that comes to your head.
So good.
Honky.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. It was
Jungle my dead honky. And I mean, like, the look in his eye, and again, you know, it's like, it's one of the great things, and again, I hate to bag on the modern thing, because it seems so easy when you have all the classics to look at, but it's one of the reasons I have such trouble with Saturday Night Live, not just today, but for, I mean, even when Sandler and all of those guys were on it, Spade and Farley. Back in when they started with those original couple of casts, they memorized their damn lines, which meant you actually had people looking at each other and talking to one another.
Acting.
So it wasn't just the written bit. You could have something that might develop that would happen between two people.
Like Gilda Radner and Bill Murray playing the two nerds. That would not have worked on fucking
right. Or I mean, like even a more modern. Just to get back to the Nora Dunn interview with Tonto, Tarzan, and Frankenstein, where Phil Hartman busts through the wall.
Right.
It's all here. If they were looking at the cue cards, there is no flow to it.
No.
And again, just saw, you know, what was it, the Zach Galifianakis episode. Opening monologue, fantastic. First sketch, I mean, nobody was looking at one another. And then part of the sketch was a physical bit that they had to kiss one another. So they would kiss one another and then look away to the cue card.
Jesus
and I have to look back. And I'm like, did no one think to say, forget everything else, just memorize this one.
Right.
Forget everything else.
Just this one.
Don't go do the true thing. That you don't do that. You stay here, memorize with her. Don't go anywhere. But they don't do that.
And they're never going to cut the show down to an hour like it ought to be anyway. That's just part of it.
Nah.
The only thing that kept me afloat was holding me coconut.
All right, everybody, the battery dies. If the battery dies again, I'm sorry, but you're fucked. Yeah, so we were talking about cue cards and Saturday Night Live and Zach Galifianakis.
Well, actually, in the break, I was talking about how the Mediterranean man is inferior to the others. But,
Right, well, genetically.
But we should probably get back to the
We should
topic.
probably get back to where we were.
Sorry, we were talking about what?
Well, we'd gone on about Saturday Night Live, and Pryor, you know, had done a turn on Saturday Night Live, too, that was pretty funny. And that's what we ended up going to, where, you know, people, you don't see those classic performances anymore, except I do.
Sure.
I still watch when Alec Baldwin's on Saturday Night Live, and I still watch Justin Timberlake, actually.
Well, yeah,
makes me laugh.
People love Timberlake on SNL, you know, I mean, and I'll give Alec Baldwin the shot every time. I mean, I remember the first time I saw him on Saturday Night Live, and he did that scene where he had to, like, he was making out with everything, like everything that came in the door, the organ music would rise, he started making out with it, and my favorite one was this, is he's supposed to go to the window and open the window because there's a stray cat walking around, which he eventually ends up making out with, but he grabs, and it's such a great fuck-up, he grabs the window frame, and because there's no window in it, he just grabs the little lattice work and pulls on it, and the two pieces just pop off in his hands. And then he goes, it's like, oh, I have to open it from the bottom, then slides the thing open. But doesn't even recognize he's locked in on the cat the whole time. It's great, and then of course he makes that with the cat.
And to tie him into Pryor, where Pryor making fun of his cocaine accident, I think it was the last episode of 30 Rock where Alec Baldwin was giving advice how to be either celebrity or famous, and don't make a call that gets recorded by somebody and released, you know. So you know, you can appreciate the celebrity who will laugh at themselves.
Sure.
Because I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's the smart way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we all, you know, it's well, and it's also that thing is when the thing is there and is so obvious, you can be the jerk and try to pretend it's not there, or you can roll with it and say, look, we all saw it. I farted. Let's get on with it.
Right.
It was funny. It smells a little bit. Not as much as I thought. And then you go, you know, and you know. Yeah, you just deal with it. But he's, you know, again, he was a great, and I think this is just true for a select group of comedians. I think it takes almost an entire lifetime of work to get there.
Yeah.
But he almost transcends stand-up comedy where, I mean, he's just a brilliant comedic actor, and I know he didn't really get the chance to show that in a lot of the movies that he was in, but, you know, the work that he did on his own, I mean, he wrote Blazing Saddles, for Christ's sake. You know, I mean, he was amazing. I mean, he had, I think he has 3 scenes in Silver Streak, and he's one of the most memorable things in it.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, from that one little piece, springboards, what, 3, 4, 5 more movies with Gene Wilder and him as the stars? I mean...
I just feel like he got... I think one reason, or at least one excuse people always gave for not hiring him was the drug problems. And that was the reason why they said they wouldn't let him play Black Bart. That was what he was going to play Bart.
Yeah. Oh no, I know.
Saddles. So so whether that was real, whether that was an excuse, I don't think he was given enough of a chance. I said earlier he screwed himself. I said not that was probably a miss.
Well, no,
but I think you're dead on there, though. To be honest with you, that he, I'm sure, knew, but that's also what made Richard Pryor was the drug use and the demons and the things that were going on.
Exactly. There's like a couple of those little things that are so much a part of the person you can't separate them.
Right.
Like when just to drum back to 30 Rock. I love how everything we mentioned is kind of intertwined. Tracy Morgan recently. You know, the problem with him, and like what he said was, and I went back over it and listened to it. I'm like, you know what? That's just really mean. There's no joke in there. I've been going over and over, and even the way he would say it, I'm like, this isn't really. This is what he thinks, I think.
Yeah.
But then I have to go back to what Chris Rock said originally, even though he goes back and say this is kind of fucked up. He's like, I don't want to live in a world where Tracy Morgan can't say crazy shit. Like that's how he got to where he is. I mean, there's a point where you go to and then you stop before you get to the beyond the Michael Richards fringe. We have now crossed over into deep psychological problems, or something ingrained, or a past life, or a voodoo curse. I don't know what.
Yeah, Michael Richards never quite. He went on TV and tried to apologize.
Well, I mean, there's certain things you can apologize about for being maybe ignorant or anything else, but then this wasn't one comment, and I actually went back and listened.
The only thing that kept me afloat was holding me coconut.
And now we are recording. Okay.
And that is why I think phrenology is a viable science.
Now that I hear it, you hear it and then you understand.
Well, so I brought along my head model.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Now that I know that I'm a rapist, I can avoid it. It's good.
And I can avoid you.
This bump always felt weird to me.
Are we wrapping up?
I think we should wrap up because our thing is not charged properly. That's my fault. Jeremy blames me, I blame me, you can blame me. I think Mike blames me, but he's being too nice. You don't?
He's being very nice.
It's nice of you, though.
I have enough blame for all of you.
We will definitely do another Richard Pryor album, but wrap up your thoughts on it and why this is so important to you guys.
I think it's a must-see for people who love comedy to even see it, not just listen to this too, which is so funny, but also to see and to see where comedians came from. To know that he was out there doing things, and to watch the guy make fun of himself, really hard time in his life. Wondering, how do you get there? How do you, He takes a look at himself. And it's interesting that it wasn't drugs really that that got him in the end either. I mean, it wasn't.
Sure.
As many demons as he fought throughout the years. It was an actual disease.
Yeah.
Not one of those fake diseases.
Right.
That's so popular with the kids today.
Jeremy.
No, I was just doing a lot of head nodding right there for all that. I mean, I totally and completely agree. It's one of those groundbreaking albums that sets the standard for everything that comes after it. You kind of have to use the yardstick for this one. And just to add on one thing, I think one of the reasons why it's just so captivating to hear him tell that the story about his life. I mean, isn't that basically what every producer of the Ozzy Osbourne show, or Flava Flav's Love Life, or every train wreck of a reality show, like they're looking for something that touching, that real, but when it's told by somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, it transcends just being some common thing where you're rubbernecking, and it becomes art. You can apply some of it to your own life.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is amazing.
It's great storytelling, and again, it's a 2-hour album, almost 2-hour album.
Yeah,
that's it's flawless. It just goes from one thing into the next.
Yeah.
There are no catch-ups, and even when he loses a train of thought, he's got something else that he can jump onto right away. You know, it's and you can hear it in the audience too. They're with them the whole time. They want to hear this stuff, and they love it.
If you want to be a comedian too, you know, I mean, you want to see how a pro does it.
Yep.
You know, this is example A. You know.
Well, thank you guys very much for bearing the heat and this fucking audio stuff. So thank you guys very much, and thank you to Jeremy Guskin. And
my pleasure.
Thank you to Mike Preister.
Mine too.
He's a smart dude.
Yeah, well, I picked the right people to talk so that I don't have to. Comedy on Vinyl, episode probably 8. Richard Pryor, live in the Sunset Strip. Go listen to it. And Jeremy, we got a little bit of space. Anything to plug, either one of you? Anything that you're doing or working on that you want to talk about?
I've got a mini series coming out on NBC soon called Blackout.
Awesome.
I play a villain.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't get to do that very often.
And I'm going to be one of the dwarves in the Julia Roberts Snow White.
Oh, very nice.
Well, no, wait, no, that's the guy from Shorty. I forgot. That's one of those guys.
Well, we'll look out for it anyway.
Right.
Pretend it's you. If
should
that's
be great.
Cool.
Yes.
And we're doing a live episode on September 17th at 3:30 p.m. A convenient time for everybody. It's a Phil Hartman tribute, and Jeremy and I are both in a drinking game here in Hollywood once a month. But next is Back to the Future.
Yes, come check it out.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So thank you very much, and this is going to die soon. So have a wonderful thing.
Yay, thing!
The only thing that kept me afloat was holding me coconut.
Comedy on Vinyl is recorded at Fort Awesome Studios in Burbank, California. Go to comedyonvinyl.com to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Our producer is Mike Worden, and our editor is Jason Klamm. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. To see what else we're up to, go to stolendress.com and look at our podcasts, our books, our blogs, our videos, and anything else that might strike your fancy. And if stolendress.com is too long for you, you can always go to goo.gl/Y, as in zinc, F.
Mr. Solomon's phone job, I was passing by this morn. He said the wind's been very high and one of the balls are gone. Solomon looked at his sign and said, well, can't you help me, please? There's only a couple of gilded globes are dangling in the breeze. I was holding me coconut, the pawnbroker said to me, I can't do any business, me sign is broke, you see. One of the balls are blown away, me shop I left to shut. I said, don't worry yourself, old man, I'll lend you me coconut.